I'm Lee and welcome to iMineBlocks. In this video I'll be showing you how to use the Burstcoin Turbo Plotter program, which is a program that allows you to create your Burstcoin blocks in an easy and simple manner using a nice graphical and user interface. So previously you may have used the W plotter or the X plotter. So those were command line programs and they was a little bit cumbersome to use. A lot of people didn't get on very well with them. This Turbo Plotter, which I'll open on screen now, is a much simpler and more intuitive way of doing things. So it has this nice graphical user interface. You can use it for your CPUs and also your GPUs. One of the other primary features is that you can use a SSD drive as a caching drive before writing to your final destination hard drive. So that helps speed up the plotting process as well. So on the official website, which is blackpawn.com/TP, it gives us a few graphics to show you the basic operation of the Turbo Plotter. The version that I'm using is the Turbo Plotter Beta 2D. There is a Pro version available, which allows you to have multiple instances or write to multiple drives at the same time, but I'm just using the free version. It's also worth noting that this has a plot checking option as well, which is a pretty cool feature, and I'll be showing you that as well. So let's get started with the demonstration on how to use this piece of software. Like I say, you can go to the official website or you can download using a link in the video description. Select the file and download it. From your download location, normally your downloads folder, you can extract the zip file. In this case, I've just done it to my desktop. And then you'll have the Turbo Plotter folder, which is where you're going to be running the program from. So let's open this up. Inside you'll see several files which look just like this. So you want to select the turboplotter.exe and you want to right click it and you want to run it as an administrator. That will give you full access to the program and its features. You might get a Windows Defender warning, that's okay. We're going to run it anyway. So the program asks us, do we have existing plots? So if you do, you select yes. And then what it will do is it will open up a file system and it will allow you to import your previous plot, your numeric address from that previous plot. I'll just show you how that works, in fact. So if we say yes, and it'll ask us for a location of a previous plot. So we've already got some demo plots. So we've got one here. So it has our numeric account ID, which is the first series of numbers. And now the program knows exactly what our numeric account ID is, so we can use it for that. I'll show you the other method as well. So if you're using this for the very first time, if you haven't created any plots or anything like that, again, we run it as an administrator. It says, do we have any existing plots? If we select no, then it's going to ask us for our Burstcoin address or our numeric account ID. So you can just copy and paste. I'll show you where you get those details from. So if you go to your Burstcoin wallet or a Burstcoin Explorer, you can see this is our Burstcoin address. And most plotters normally will just use this numeric account ID. So we're going to copy that. And then we'll go back to the plotter and we're just going to paste that in there. And we're going to select OK. Just minimize the browser there, just focus on the Turbo Plotter. So I'll take you through some of the options and we can get started with this. So this plotter supports CPUs and also GPUs that support the OpenCL function. By default, or I would recommend that you write using your GPU. You'll find it works better than your CPU. You should get a faster writing operation. It does ask you a question whether you want to edit your registry and it affects the timeout operation on your GPUs. You can do that. You would need to restart your machine. I have not applied that process and it seems to work for me just fine. So I'd say select no, but if you have any problems with writing, then maybe go back through the process and select yes to do that. But I haven't had any process problems with it. So I'm just going to select no on that option. So we've selected GPU 1, which is a RX 570. It doesn't really matter whether you have a high-end GPU or even a low-end GPU, the writing performance will still be very good. The next option, and this part is optional, you can select a SSD path. So I have an SSD in this machine, so I'll select that. So on this instance, what I'll do is the SSD is the primary hard drive for this machine. So what I'm going to do is go into my desktop, and then I've already created a folder there, which is just this SSD cache, and I'm going to select that. So it's on my SSD on my desktop, and it's just this folder here. So that's going to be like a caching folder. The next part is to select your final destination, or where you want to write the plots to. So I'm going to write those to a traditional mechanical hard drive. So it's disk E, got Burstcoin plots, and then I'm just going to create a new kind of subfolder. I'll call that demo. We'll select that. So just to recap that first section there before I go into the more details. So we've selected GPU 1, we've got our SSD path there, and we've got our final plot destination path here. You'll also notice underneath it's a little bit faint, but you've got fill. So by default, when you select the path, it will automatically use all of the free space of the drive. You can select this option. So for example, if you wanted to only use or write a 10 gig plot, you can just enter the file size in there. So I'll do that for this example. So we're just going to write a 10 gig plot. So you've got that option there to choose whether you want to write a complete full drive or if you just want to write a smaller percentage. The next part is the starting nonce. So if you've done any other previous plotting, nonce is a series of numbers or a range of numbers that you want your plot to start with. If you're doing your very first plot, you want to start with 0. And let's say you plotted 100,000 nonces on your first plot, then your second plot should start 100,001. So you want each one of your plots to have a unique nonce range. This program, it also has an additional feature, so you can use auto mode, and what that does is it uses parts of the hard drive serial number to create the starting nonce. So that's quite a useful feature, and it means that each one of your nonce series will be unique if you use it in that mode. You can also choose from a file, so if you've got a previous Burstcoin plot, you can select the previous plot and then it will know where to start your new plot from. In this instance, I'm just going to start it from 0 because it's a demonstration of starting for the very first time, so your starting nonce will be 0. You can also enter any number you wish if you want to do it manually, and then select done. And then the next part is max file size. So we've already chose that we want to fill 10 gigabytes in total, but you've also got max file size as well. I would always recommend you write large plots as one single big file, but you can also do it as a chunk kind of option. So for example, let's say we wanted to do much smaller chunks. So in this case, instead of writing one big 10 gig file, what it's going to do is write 10 1 gigabyte files. So you can play with the options. I prefer normally just to write one large file, but you can do it in different ways depending on your personal preference. And I'll set it like this to show you how it works in that scenario. So just a quick summary, we are going to be using GPU 1, we've got our SSD path, we've got our final destination path, we are creating 10 gigabytes of plots, our starting nonce is 0, our individual plot file size is 1 gigabyte, And then from this point we are ready to go. So we're going to start plotting, and I'll show you how the process plays out. So it takes a little second to get started, but at the top you've got your GPU or your CPU, which is right into your RAM, and then what you'll see is that it kind of counts up, and then it kind of moves to the next section, and it's you'll get this kind of wave motion as it continues on. The next part, this green part, which as I say is a kind of an optional part if you're using the SSD, or if you're not using it, I'll come on to that in a moment. So this part is where it's right into your SSD, so it's kind of caching. And you can see the details there at the write speed, etc. And then the bottom part is where it is moving from your SSD to your final destination. So you can kind of see your final write speed to your physical hard drive there. So that's how that process works. And you just leave it running, and at the end you'll get a summary once it's completed. You also have a kind of estimated time to completion, and that's quite accurate. It does change dynamically depending on your overall write speeds, etc. So I'll leave that going just for a minute, just so you can see the summary at the end, and then I'll come back and we'll continue on. I'll show you how to do the same process but without using a SSD. So you can see at this point that our GPU has computed everything that it needs to do, so it's basically finished. It's written all that information to our SSD, so there's no more work, new work going into our SSD, and now that information is just being finalized and written to our mechanical hard drive. So now we have the summary here, and it's got some basic information just to show you that it's been completed and also the time taken. Just close that. And if we reopen the Turbo Plotter, I'll just show you a few extra features. Like I say, if we're going to be writing in without using the SSD. So this time we are going to use GPU1 as we did before. We're not going to select a SSD. We are going to select our final destination drive. So I'll show you the extra demonstration. So this time we already have a Burstcoin plot which started from 0. So this time I'll show you, if you go into the demo folder. So what you would want to find is your last plot, which will be kind of this one here. The one with the highest starting nonce number, which is the number that comes after your numeric ID. So find your highest previous nonce or Burstcoin plot and select that. So now it's going to start from this number here. Again, max file size. I'll show you how it works in this instance. If you just pick a higher number, higher than the plot size that you want to write, and it will work out the details automatically. So here we have the fill. So again, we're going to do 10 gigabytes. The max file size is going to be 10, so it's going to be, this time it's going to write one file. Also, I didn't mention in the previous section, the RAM to use is free. So by default, it will automatically use as much free RAM as you have available, but you can also adjust it up or down. It's probably fine to leave it just as it is. So to show you in this instance, we're using GPU1. We're not going to be using our SSD. This time round, we are writing to the same location. We are writing a 10 gigabyte file. It starts from a different nonce, and it's a single 10 gig file. So I'll start that. When you click start, it does take a couple of seconds to kind of get going, so don't worry if you get a momentary pause. So you can see this time writing is slightly different. So as before, the GPU is working, it's filling up our RAM. But as soon as the RAM buffer is filled up, then it immediately writes to our mechanical hard drive. You can see this buffer, it will go up, fill, and write, and then kind of refill and go repeat the process. So you can see on these smaller plots that using an SSD doesn't make a dramatic amount of difference. To get the real performance benefits by using an SSD, you need one with quite a a fair amount of free space. I'd probably recommend at least 100 gigabytes or something to get the best performance from that. And then if you're writing big plots, then you might find some advantage when using a SSD. But for small plots, writing to single mechanical drives is really no problem, just to use it without the SSD. So that's how that works. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to interrupt this. So this is, if you interrupt it or the computer crashes, you can also use a resume feature. So I'll show you how that works. So let's just assume we closed it. And it says, are you sure you want to stop and close it? We're going to say yes. And then we're going to leave the plotting file. So we're going to resume later. We're going to say yes again. In that situation, if your computer crashed or anything like that, you can resume from the same feature. Because of the way the plotter writes, it will leave that plotting file open for you. So in that situation, what you would do is reopen the Turbo Plotter. And then you want to find your kind of incomplete Burstcoin plot. So it was on E, and then it was Burstcoin plots, and then we had it in this demo folder. Sorry, no, we didn't. Oh, yes, we did. It's this file here. So you can see all the other complete files are just called file types, and this one is the extension is .plotting. So this is the one that is not complete. So you want to drag this into the Turbo Plotter. And it asks, would you like to resume plotting on this file with the current set option? So you can say yes. Like I say, there's a momentary pause and then it will complete the writing of that. So that's very useful if your computer crashes or you have any issues with it at all. So that's how you resume file writing in that instance. I'm going to close it again this time, but this time I'm not going to save that plotting file. You can see it's been deleted. But what I am going to show you is you can also use the Turbo Plotter to verify your plots, which is a really cool feature. So if you run it as an administrator, as we have been doing throughout this process. So with the program just kind of open but not doing anything, you select a plot that you've written, and this is only useful for optimized plots. By the way, the Turbo Plotter does write optimized plots only. So what you do is you drag one of your plots that you have created, and the one that is finished, by the way, to the Turbo Plotter. And it's going to read through the plot, and it's going to confirm whether the plot is good or bad. So it will read through, and if you get all green boxes, the plot is good. There is also, I've seen on some plots you get yellow boxes as well. As far as I'm aware, they are okay. Also, you should get a final summary just to confirm everything is okay. But if you're seeing any red boxes, that indicates that there is some kind of problem with the plot, and you probably would be a good idea to replot that file. So that is the summary, and it's basically confirmed that the plot is perfectly fine. Okay, so I believe I've covered everything in this video that you might need to know about using the Turbo Plotter 9000. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you have, please give the video a like. If you like this type of content and you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to the channel. I do put out content like this on a regular basis. It would be great to have you as part of our community, and you know, you're always welcome to share your thoughts and ideas on these type of things. So that's it for this one. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.